For the past year, Can-Am has had to sit back and watch as their main competitor claimed all 3 titles of biggest, baddest, and most powerful. Now though, that's all changed. 2024 Maverick R is not just the biggest, baddest, and most powerful sports side-by-side in the industry, it also showcases a number of interesting features and technologies. But before we get into the finer details of how the Maverick R works, let's take a look at some of the important specs. Under the hood, you're going to find an all-new 999cc 3-cylinder engine. But before you go thinking that this is just a beefed-up version of the old Maverick's Ace architecture 3-cylinder, you need to understand it's not. This new engine has been built from the ground up to be incredibly durable and more than capable of handling all 240 turbocharged horsepower it's currently producing. According to Can-Am engineers, literally every part is bigger and stronger than the old 3-cylinder. Also completely different is one of the most interesting features of the Maverick R, and that's its 7-speed DCT transmission. The engine has been specifically designed for this transmission and vice versa. This is the first gear-on-gear transmission from Can-Am, but obviously it's not the first in the industry. The real difference here is that Can-Am opted for a 7-speed. Power is transferred to the wheels via a shiftable 4x4 system that includes 4 modes: 2x4, 4x4 trail, 4x4 trail active, and 4x4 lock. Each of these systems is controlled electronically, and they all have their own unique feel. The chassis and suspension is all new as well. Overall width is a staggering 77 inches. Double A-arms up front yield 25 inches of travel. Out back you'll find a 4-link trailing arm setup that yields 26 inches of travel. The strange looking setup is called the high knuckle design, and it offers a couple of important benefits. First, it reduces the amount of leverage being applied to the arms and links when you side load the bottom portion of the tire. This change in how the load is distributed into the chassis also helps to raise the roll center of the vehicle, which makes it more stable in the corners. It reduces kickback into the steering wheel and helps keep the wheels pointed where you want them, which improves stability and predictability when things get really rough. Finally, let's talk about the interior of the Maverick R. The version I tested is the full gem XRS with Smart-Shox. It features really comfortable, high-back, well-bolstered seats that are adjustable forward and back and up and down with the use of spacers. The seating position feels slightly more upright than the older Maverick, which is actually good because it offers vastly improved sightlines over the hood. Retractable 4-point harnesses are standard, as is a tilting and telescoping steering wheel with column-mounted gauge. In the center of the dash, you'll find Can-Am's new 10.25-inch display. It controls all aspects of the vehicle, including the gauge itself, GPS mapping, your phone, your music, and all of the Smart-Shox XRS model's adjustable features, which can be adjusted from the display, a keypad below the display, or the steering wheel. Adjustable features include the obvious, like the Smart-Shox with Soft, Sport, and Sport Plus. Your throttle modes with Standard, Sport, and Sport Plus, DPS power steering settings with low, medium, and high, and your 4x4 modes. The layout of the keypad is simple and easy to understand, which is more than I can say for the use of not just one, but 2 Sport Plus modes that do totally different things. The transmission is 100% electronically controlled. The shift knob is how you select forward, reverse, or low range. You can also use buttons below the shift knob if you want to. Neutral and park can only be selected with buttons. Shifting into low range can be done at any time, even while you're moving. Now let's talk about how it actually works, because the truth is that's all that really matters. First, the engine and transmission surprised me a lot. The engine, because of its incredible power, 240 horsepower, is as insane as you expect it to be, especially when it's transferred through a gear-on-gear transmission with very little power loss. Power is incredibly strong down low, but builds almost mind-bendingly fast. The 3 throttle modes offer very different power characteristics. Standard mode, the power is very linear, and the programming does a great job at filtering out any unwanted throttle inputs as your foot bounces on the pedal while you're running over really rough terrain. When you select Sport mode, you can hear the idle RPM raise slightly. Throttle tipping is more aggressive and the power ramps up quickly. Sport Plus mode, though, is where the magic really happens. Sport Plus features an anti-lag system that pretty much completely eliminates turbo lag altogether. The RPMs at idle raise just slightly higher than the Sport mode, but when you put it in gear, the sound of the engine changes completely and it sounds totally weird. I can't say enough about how well this system works. I've never experienced power like this in any side-by-side ever. All of this power would be useless if it wasn't transferred through a well-tuned transmission, and I'm very pleased to say Can-Am's 7-speed is the best working DCT transmission I've ever tested. You can choose to manually shift using the paddles, or you can let it shift itself in auto mode. I left the transmission in auto mode pretty much all the time and found that unlike other auto shifting transmissions, this one is programmed near perfect. It seems to always be in the right gear. When you step on the throttle, it lets the incredible torque of the engine do the work instead of downshifting. I also found the shifts to be buttery smooth. Even in the sand, with sand tires, the transmission seemed to always be in the right gear. Now the question does need to be asked, is it better than a CVT? And my answer is simply this. There are benefits to both, large and small. For my driving style, I still think I prefer a CVT. However, the Maverick R's DCT left very little to be desired, and I'd be happy to drive it day after day if I owned one. Unfortunately, I find it very difficult to comment on the handling of the Maverick R because the entire time I was testing it was spent in the dunes. The models I tested also had sand tires, not the stock tires, and that changes things quite a bit. Suspension, on the other hand, is something I can confidently comment on. From drops to jumps to long sections of 2-foot deep uneven whoops, I pushed the Maverick R as hard as I could. And if I had to sum up my experience in one word, it would be wow. The tall knuckle suspension provides incredibly stable and predictable big bump handling characteristics, but it didn't seem to matter how fast I went or what line I took. The Maverick R stayed level and gave me no surprises. I was running the toughest whoop section at over 65 miles an hour. Now there are obviously two things at work here. First, the chassis and suspension, which both work amazing. And second is Smart-Shox. In the soft setting, you could run washboard sand and get very little feedback into the chassis. It simply ate up the bumps. But when the bumps turned into whoops, the suspension would get overworked fast and would start to bottom out. The sport setting was perfect for riding fast on rough trails. It offered a perfect mix of smooth ride, big bump absorption, and anti-bottoming. Sport Plus is definitely what you want to be in for running the whoops fast or for hitting jumps. It soaked up the biggest hits like they weren't even there and provided impressive bottoming resistance. As expected on the washboard bumps though, at slower speeds it felt like you were driving a dump truck. I would love to go into great detail on every one of the Maverick R's features. What I think is most important to get across today though is this. Can-Am approached the Maverick R with a completely blank sheet of paper. It very clearly has strong Can-Am DNA everywhere you look, but the deeper you look and the harder you ride, the more you realize the Maverick R offers a different level of performance in every category performance is measured. I think it's pretty safe to say Can-Am has won back all the titles of biggest, baddest, and most powerful. Simply put, there's just nothing out there like it.